Shelly and all of you for our Cello Tip Thursday live stream. Oh, gotta move that tip jar. Hope we're all doing fabulously today. So good to be here with all of you and talk cello. I'm gonna go over here a little bit. Beautiful, great. So I'm just gonna be setting up Instagram live as well. And then we're gonna get right into your questions, tips and tricks, all that great stuff. And if you wanna warm up the chat and put in some requests early, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So now we are here for Instagram. Gotta go live on Instagram. Yes. All right. This is great. Okay. Perfect. And so now you're gonna go live. Yep. Okay. There we go. Okay. So we are live. Awesome. Great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Cello Tip Thursday live stream of the new year. Yeah, that's right. I haven't seen you all in a live stream since 2023, so it's awesome to be here and trying a different setup today with some blue lighting going on. Awesome, great. We already have some questions. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love seeing everyone excited in the chat. Happy New Year. This is the first live stream of the new year. Very happy to be here and to help you all with cello tips and tricks. You can also ask general questions about what it's like being a performer in Las Vegas, or anything about the music industry, especially if you are considering music school for next year, things like that. So we can definitely talk about whatever you dolls want to know about. So, awesome. So great to see you all. I see we also have our first question of the new year. Thank you so much to Hearts Liz, or H3 Arts Liz. You have the first question of the new year on our live stream. So, oh wow, awesome, fantastic, great. We have a local doll too chiming in. I love it. So, yeah, wonderful. So, a question about slow vibrato versus fast vibrato. So, if you want to elaborate, you can talk about if you're noticing maybe transitioning is difficult, or if you just kind of want to run down on how they both work and kind of tips for both of them. I'll just jump right in, and you can chime in at any time if you want have a specific avenue you want to go down. So the first question is about fast vibrato versus slow vibrato. Now I will tell you, slow vibrato, yeah, just a rundown on vibrato. Awesome. So slow vibrato is more difficult than fast vibrato, because if you think about vibrato as a cycle, you wind the hand back and forth, things like that. That's a cycle going back a little bit forward, back forward, back forward, back forward. It's like a cycle. And to slow that down, you need very good control on your mechanism, your physicality of the vibrato. Fast vibrato, a lot of people find that easier. So if you can have a really, really, really excellent slow vibrato, you're going to be set up really, really well. So, kind of an exercise I like to tell people to do is to do vibrato so slow, you're basically bending the pitch. So, and you want to make sure your forearm is rocking with that motion, that you're not trying to just jiggle the wrist and hope that helps. That's a big difference between cello vibrato and other string instruments, is the wrist is kind of along for the ride. Our arm gives us the momentum, and then the wrist comes along. We don't actually originate a lot of stuff from the wrist, so I would really make sure you have a soft thumb under the neck, that you have good contact, but you're not clenching. And you really want that arm to move. Consistent loose vibrato and you kind of lose it, that's going to be your slowest vibrato for now, because you really want to work on having a stable slow vibrato. So let's say it was around, you kind of live with that for a while and you really get that consistent, and then you kind of do a medium slow vibrato, because everyone wants to go, and we kind of get this laser beam kind of vibrato, which honestly you don't really use it. You have to use it for the particular type of repertoire. It has to be right for the repertoire. If you're playing something that's a very slow, lush melody, like one example I think of is the opening of Faure's Elegie. I'm not going to go. It sounds very like it's not quite fitting for the lyrical character. So you don't want to have a laser beam vibrato, I would say 9 times out of 10. So I really encourage you to work on your slow vibrato first, and then to get a medium paced vibrato and a faster vibrato. But it all comes from getting a consistent slow vibrato first, and then from that stability we speed up into kind of a medium default vibrato that a lot of people have, which is like a medium, and then something for like a really electrifying, energetic long note, there's a faster vibrato. Now, if your forearm has difficulty moving, if you find your wrist is really trying to kick in and do a lot of stuff, this is an exercise from my vibrato bootcamp program. So if you're just learning vibrato, or you haven't learned it at all, this is a great program to help unlock what might be inhibiting your vibrato, causing you to freeze up. So it's on my YouTube channel. It's completely free if you want to check it out. But this is kind of an abridged version of the stuff I talk about in it. So a great exercise, I call it the sliding sirens, where I kind of start in first position and I go up to fourth. And my thumb is still under the neck. It's light and sliding along, but you can really see the forearm opening up. That's really going to loosen up your forearm and allow it to be proactive. And then we slowly narrow it in. And then wherever you land, you try to keep that going. That's one of the exercise is don't really think about a specific pitch, just land with that loose, free shaking in the forearm, and then you can try to pick a particular pitch, like I want to land on C sharp with third finger, something like that. So that's a huge, the sliding, and I can't stress enough, you really need to start with a wide sliding. A lot of people, when they do the siren, they just kind of do the express lane. No, really long slides that are slow and loose, because you really need to unlock that forearm. I can get away with barely using my forearm, really opening it up, starting with wide slides. So the wide slides, narrowing in, that's going to help you with kind of getting a sliding wide glissando to a medium pace vibrato. And then if you want, you can really do an exaggerated pivot where your forearm's kind of getting thrown forward. That's a good way to start with just a slow vibrato. And then really having it consistent and slow. If you find you, again, I'm kind of doing a recap if people joined us. Oh, you're most welcome. So if I am doing a slow kind of throwing with the forearm, and let's say that happens a lot, people kind of stop. Start again and try to not go any faster than that. That's your limit for consistency, and that's fine. That's totally fine. You know, if I'm remembering correctly, I was young when I started learning vibrato, but I got fast vibrato very quickly, and then slow vibrato was very difficult. Very, very difficult for me to figure out. So that's why I really encourage people to start with a slow vibrato and then kind of build a medium vibrato and a fast vibrato, because you are building everything from a place of relaxation and ease. So good luck on your vibrato journey. Very fun. Vibrato is such an exciting part of learning the cello because it's our way of adding expression and color to very long notes and beautiful melodies. So excellent question. Great way to start. Okay, so I'm going to go on to some more questions. Okay, question about my own practice. Could you please let us know what your typical practice day is? If typical is even a thing for you. Do I use a practice planner? Do I warm up or dive direct? Yeah, this is a great question. And you know, this would actually be a very interesting vlog topic, I feel like, because a lot of people do like a day in a life at a conservatory and how people practice in music school. And what a lot of people might not realize is there's a very drastic transition between how you practice in music school versus how you practice in real life as a professional. You have a lot more time, which is a huge luxury in music school. You have a lot of time to just go sit and practice for hours. As a professional, that's very rarely the case. Yeah, a day in the life of cello doll. Oh boy. Those are very different depending on what day you find me. But generally, what I kind of do is I look at the calendar and I see, do I have any gigs coming up? And if I do have a gig coming up, I usually prioritize that music so I feel refreshed, review the music. Even if it's something I've played before, I always like to review music I have for a gig. So gigging music kind of goes at the top of the list. I try to sprinkle that in amongst my week, practicing it for over half of the week, and then I'll get into that. But as a warm-up, I do a scale cycle. I go through, oh man, how many different variations of scales? Probably like 8. And I cycle keys. So I play about 8 different scales in a cycled format. And then if I'm feeling it, sometimes I'll pull out an old etude by Popper or a Piatti Caprice. as a warm-up to do something technical. But generally, I try to practice as a professional about 2 hours a day. And that's actually a lot because I'm doing a lot more things now than music school, and I'm trying to have a better work-life balance. So actually squeezing in 2 hours of practicing is a lot. But that's my goal, is to get 2 hours in. So usually I do the scale warm-up and open strings. Then I go into my repertoire. If I have a gig, I really focus on that repertoire at least every other day, sometimes every day if it's rep I've never played before and have to memorize. Yeah, so that's kind of, if it's a new gig, new music, you gotta have it memorized by Saturday. I'm practicing that as much as I can. If I don't have a gig coming up that week, I usually work on my cello doll repertoire, which is something that I want to do this year, is have more chances to perform the arrangements I've made and some of the singles I've made, to perform that in more in-person situations. So I practice cello doll repertoire. I always have a concerto to keep my technical chops really, really high. So I will rotate between cello doll repertoire, a piece of classical repertoire, gigging music, and there are some ensembles here in Vegas I play for regularly, and I have their music. So we call it the book. If I don't have a gig coming up, at least once or twice a week, I go through the book, because sometimes I play with certain groups frequently and they'll say, oh, add this one to the set list. Well, if I haven't played that one in months, I'm basically have to really make sure I have it memorized. So I really try to rotate things to keep ensemble repertoire fresh. Oh, and we have a badge bought on Instagram. Thank you so much. Oh, that's one of my good friends. So good to see you. Thank you for your badge on Instagram. Thank you so much. Good to see you. So yeah, that's kind of how I structure my practicing. And in terms of practice journaling, I did that a lot in college. Now, sometimes I'll practice journal if I'm preparing something very technical, or if I'm working on an audition video. Sometimes I'll record myself leading up to where I need to audition, and I'll watch my practice room recording and take notes, things like that. Also, I apologize. We have a very vocal neighborhood pet today. So if you hear that, unfortunately, it's in the neighborhood and I can't control it. My kitties are very quiet. So it's something going on in the neighborhood, and unfortunately, okay. Nope, there it goes. It's okay. Well, maybe if I get to play some stuff with Chelly, we'll soothe the outdoor pets. So yes, practice journaling, did a lot of it in college, and that was crucial. That was so crucial. I really recommend it for conservatory students too, because some days when you have coursework, homework, rehearsals, you might not have a lot of time to practice, but if you videotape your practice session, you can go home, whether it's a dorm room or an apartment or a shared house, you can go, you can listen, watch your recording and take notes, and it's kind of like practice time. It's not kind of, it is another form of practicing. You don't always have to practice sitting with the instrument. So the only time I really journal now is, again, if I'm preparing for an audition, I run through the audition many times beforehand, record myself, take notes on what I need to practice the next day. I've also been doing a different type of journaling where I journal my cello doll office work schedule and kind of see, am I being the most productive I can with my time? Am I working too hard? Are there ways I could take some shortcuts and work more efficiently, maybe in less time, get more done? So I've actually been doing a lot of journaling with how I construct my cello doll time. And the final thing I will say too is 2 hours a day. I say that's kind of difficult to fit in sometimes, 2-hour days. But again, not only I practice for gigs and performances, but in addition to that, I teach private lessons, right? I have a small studio of students. They're all absolutely wonderful, and it's a pleasure to teach all of them. But I do teach. I'm going off to a rehearsal for a live show, or I'm going right to a live show. Usually evening shows. I'm there for the second half of the entire day. So I might arrive at the venue at 4 p.m. and then I'm done at like 11. So that's like an entire half day for a lot of gigs around here. And then I'm arranging cello covers. I'm doing remote recording work. I'm planning and recording cello tip vlogs for YouTube. So there are, and I have to edit the YouTube vlogs. So I edit them, splice them, shorten them. So not only do I record the videos, I edit all of my videos. So there are a lot of stuff going on in a cello doll week. So I hope that helps. But yeah, I still make time to warm up. I still play scales. I still do open strings because it's so important to warm up your body. Just like athletes, they don't jump into their hardest workout. They got to warm up their body first, especially if you go to the gym in the morning like I did this morning and I was half asleep. You know, I had to warm up before jumping in to some heavier workouts and stuff. So it's a great question. I definitely think professionals need to talk more. Oh yeah, you're welcome. I really think professionals should talk more, because I remember when I first left music school, it was a huge, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I can't practice as much as I want to, and what if I just plummet? Like, what do I do? How do I balance? And like just kind of accepting that you're a professional now. You know how to do this. If you need to learn something, you know how to prepare. And like a huge part of trusting yourself. I was not ready for that quick amount of growth I had to do. Was you have to own being a professional. You're not in school anymore. You've been working what felt like your whole life for this, and you got to own it and enjoy it and love it. So that's going to be a vlog. It's going to say like, watch this when you graduate from music school or something like that. Just some advice I think fresh professionals need to hear. So great question. We have another, I see another question on YouTube, but I do want to check Instagram. All right, no questions yet. So I'm gonna go to YouTube. Practice tips for practicing or warming up in inconvenient locations, like when a gig doesn't have a green room or a warm-up area. Oh yeah, that's a very, very good question. Kind of another thing, a day in the life of a professional. Yeah, so I always joke around with my friends that we need to make an Instagram that's the really non-glamorous side of things we've encountered at gigs. Yeah, you don't always have a green room. You're lucky sometimes if there's a bathroom nearby where you got to keep your stuff. Sometimes you don't have anywhere to keep your stuff and you kind of got to hide it backstage and things like that. So I always joke like, no one makes an Instagram about that. It's always the beautiful, elaborate green room with the snack table and bottled waters. I mean, damn, it's a treat when that happens, you know? So, yeah, this person is exactly right. You don't always have a green room or a warm-up area. So if I know it's going to be tight on space, I generally warm up at home before I leave for the gig. If I know I'm not going to have a lot of time, Cool. More. Okay, great. Another question. I love it. So what I do, I warm them up at home for about an hour at least, if I can. If the day allows, I warm up even before I leave for the gig. So at least I've touched my instrument, my arms are warmed up, I went through some scales, things like that. So I really try to warm up at home. And then when I get to the venue, most of the time there is a sound check at the venue, because you might be dealing with microphones or amplification, especially if there's electric instruments, you will have a sound check. And I really just kind of warm up on the stage or to the side of the stage. I start kind of playing around, playing through rep until things are ready to go for the sound check. So if you don't have a green room and you can do it quietly, I try to take advantage of warming up backstage when I can. Excuse me. So that is really kind of the options I've had to use. Because here's another thing that, again, something that I really learned quickly. It's a little different in like orchestra audition environments or classical environments, because everyone's, people are warming up in the staircases. That happens so much, actually. People will sneak off and like play in a staircase if there's no rooms, or they'll find a hallway where no one's around. But if you're going to a gig, especially something like a private dinner function where people are going to be walking around finding a bathroom, or like clients are everywhere. So you have to be pretty discreet sometimes on where you practice, or right before you go on, the CEO is going to go to the podium and make a speech. Well, you can't be noodling and playing arpeggios if you're going to be interrupting this person's speech. So you really have to know the layout of the evening of the gig, places where you're not going to be able to warm up if other things are going around or going on, or guests are walking around. It kind of looks weird if your professional musician for the night is off in a corner scrambling through arpeggios. It's very hard to explain that, no, I'm prepared, I just got to keep my hands warm and my arms warm. But it doesn't always appear to that way to someone who doesn't know the lifestyle of music. That's why I'm saying, in a music school, people warm up in staircases, in hallways, and people understand. But you really gotta get good at reading the room. So if this is one of your first gigs, and if you have a coordinator, or if you're playing in a group and there's a band leader, I would really ask them too. If you're really unsure and you say, hey, I saw that we don't have a formal green room, would there be it's okay if not, but is there a time and a place where I could warm up for 20 minutes or something? Just communicate, just be transparent and be honest. A lot of people appreciate that, and they might say, no, sorry, I don't think it's gonna happen. Then you warm up at home and you warm up at sound check. Boom, done. Okay, next question. Any tips for strengthening the bow hand so it doesn't cramp during orchestral concerts? I realize I also probably need to practice more. We can always practice more, right? But I think I have a couple suggestions, of course. But honestly, the idea of I need to practice more, maybe that's part of it. It might be a couple things. Usually, and I know this too, because again, music school, hours of rehearsals, and an orchestra concert, I definitely have had sore hands before. And it's usually a combination of stamina and tension. If you're holding tension somewhere in your body, whether you're sitting very straight and you're actually kind of locking your lower back. Some people try to sit hyper straight rather than having a gentle bend, a gentle cushioning feeling in your lower back, kind of settling on your tailbones. It could be so many things. It could be how you're sitting in the orchestra chair for multiple hours, or so what I would suggest to you is to see if you can find a pattern. So much can be learned by our tendencies and patterns. One thing that was really hard for me, there are some pieces, lordy, where the cellos have tremolo for what feels like 8 whole minutes. It's probably 2 to 5 minutes, but we're just going like, and I would always feel sore after, and I really like, I was paying attention, but I was also hyper fixated on what I was doing, and I realized I was clenching my elbow for a lot of the tremolo, just kind of tight. So then so I really worked on that. And the other thing too to realize, in orchestra there's usually 8 to 12 of you. So if something's fortissimo, you really don't have to play it with everything you got, because there's 7 to 11 of you also playing this passage. So another thing too is to really focus on quality of sound over quantity of dynamic, right? Because if all of you, let's say all of you are playing forte, collectively it's probably going to sound like fortissimo, right? So that's kind of another thing with stamina, is to be strategic about, oh, this is the climactic point of the piece, I'm going to give it my all, not giving it all when you see the first forte in bar 12, you know? So kind of, it's really a marathon. For those of you who might not know a lot about orchestral playing, which is totally fine, I love that Cello Doll has brought people of all musical backgrounds together, and I really try to understand that we might have all different backgrounds, and that's totally okay for people who might not know a lot about orchestras. I know you do, my doll that posed the question, because you mentioned being an orchestra, but it's a marathon, and you really got to learn the art of pacing yourself, really pacing yourself. So like if you're doing a 4-movement symphony and the second movement is something soft and delicate, you know, just oh, that's the arpeggio, but my hands went there for some reason. Like really finding places where you can lay back and coast. I mean, you're still actively counting and being musical, but physically you need to find places in orchestra concerts to relax. If you start noticing patterns, like, man, whenever we play on the A string, my shoulder just really gets tight. Well, are you approaching it from really high up, like a? Are you really cranking from up here? If you want to be loud on the A string, you can do that from down here, not up here. So I would encourage you to see if you can find patterns, certain types of passages or techniques or dynamics, or man, that third movement just really wipes me out. Start with finding a pattern, because I get it. When I'm playing one of my favorite pieces in a large orchestra, it is so invigorating, it is so inspiring, and I just want to really jump in and give it all. But if I do that, I'm not going to make it, or I'm going to barely make it through to the end. So my top advice would be to pace yourself and really find places where you can relax, settle down, where pianissimo, all of the cellos have to play pianissimo, so that's like 3 or 4 P's. And you just kind of, you know, go flattando. Like really find places that you can lean back. And that's the other thing too. Dynamics in orchestra are ensemble dynamics. They're not solo dynamics. It took me a long time to make that correlation because, you know, I think I had only a couple conductors talk about it. But it's really eye-opening, and it really helps with your stamina in an orchestra part. Treat dynamics as the ensemble. Yeah, it is like doing yeah, you're most welcome. So that's the thing. You really got to find out where to pace yourself, because you could have you could be very relaxed. You could have good technique, really good physical habits, a relaxed back. But if you're playing for hours upon hours upon hours, like we all, like our bodies have limits. So yeah, really, really find places where you can pace yourself. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the most exhausting pieces I've ever played. Late romantic symphonies, things like that. And the other thing, okay, I mean, again, what I'm saying is kind of opinionated. I don't want it to come off as fact, but I mean, if you think about an orchestra part with cello and it says forte, it's a cello part for the whole section. So the section, that's how it helped me to interpret it. Again, these kinds of things, someone else out there is definitely going to have a different opinion than I do, and that's fine, Diverse opinions lead to different teaching methods, and different people can grow that way. But I really think seeing it as an ensemble dynamic will help. Wow, Dvorak, New World Symphony. That's the piece this doll is talking about, which is awesome. Dvorak, New World Symphony. That's awesome. That's a fabulous piece. Oh, your place to chill out is the famous solo with the English horn. Oh, that's your movement to barely play. Everyone's always too loud. You can't hear the English horn. Every single conductor has told us we're too loud for that. Oh yeah, that's your that's your spot to really, really back off. And that goes for any time you have a solo instrument playing a melody, especially when you have a woodwind solo. English horn is beautiful. I love the English horn. That's your movement to relax and take a breath and play very flattando, very, very light. Awesome. Well, good luck. I'm so glad you're playing that piece, which is one of the great orchestra classics. It's beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Well, good luck. Good luck. An excellent question. Excellent question. All right, we're going to go back to YouTube. It's finally time to stop renting and buy. I love that. I can hear the excitement in your voice. I'm about to try out a bunch of cellos. What do you focus on prep for a tryout? Or what are some cello red flags to watch out for? Sure. Yes. Oh, yeah. So I'm glad you found the video. That video, this person is alluding to a video about buying cellos. And that video, I made a 2-part video kind of on how to research where to buy a cello. And I kind of loosely talk about tips when you're in the shop playing. But that I could do a whole vlog on that. So I'm glad you found the vlog about researching shops and things like that. But when you're in a shop you feel good about and you're sitting down with a cello, how do you try it out? So couple things. What I really like to do is just play a C scale across all the strings. I do some open strings so I can hear how the low end sounds versus how the high end sounds. You don't want to only try out the A and D, for example, so I usually kind of do a quick up and down. Or I kind of improvise on the kind of go all over, hear the range of the cello. If you have a musical friend that could come with you to listen, that's always a super big plus. If you have a musician buddy that can tag along and be a second set of ears, or record yourself on your phone. Because how you sound behind the cello is often different than how the cello will sound to the audience many feet away from you. So there's the cello sound behind the instrument and then in front of and away from the instrument. And sometimes they're different. It's very weird. One reason I really like cello actually is what I hear is very close to what the audience hears. And I actually haven't found that in a lot of cellos. Maybe I'm a little different in that. I don't know. I guess I've never really asked some of my cello buddies or just string players in general, but I find what I hear behind cello, I know, like, I can very accurately, it's what I expect. There are some cellos I've played that don't sound great to me, but sound beautiful to other people, and that's reassuring. But it's also, it's kind of hard to practice like that for long periods of time. You really want to love what you hear behind the cello, because it's going to make you want to practice and love it and enjoy it and explore all the different sounds you can make. So I would say it's not really a red flag, maybe like a yellow flag. If you're not thrilled about what you hear, but your friend says, oh, it sounds beautiful, are you going to be encouraged to practice it as much as something you really love? Now, if you have something you really love and your friend goes, it doesn't sound good, that's also kind of a yellow flag. That's something. And then I really try to play lyrical melodies. I don't know, something like a... I really try to play something lyrical so I can hear how the cello sings and how it responds to my vibrato, how it responds to my weight. That's also kind of another yellow flag. Some cellos will have this kind of weird resistance where you, if you want to sink in like 80% of the string and really get a deep, like dark chocolate kind of sound, some cellos, when you sink in like 50%, there's this weird resistance pushback, and you really got to sink in heavy to get beyond that. And the best way I can describe it is sometimes it feels stiff and that you got to really muscle it more. That's like a yellow-orange flag. I really don't like cellos that play that way because it forces me to work harder and to really be heavy. And you should just sink into it like butter. It should be really easy to sink into the string. So I would play piano, dynamic, forte, fortissimo. Also something that is kind of short and quick. Or like whatever you're playing that's kind of fast and under your fingers. Whatever, so you can do different articulations. So my top piece of advice for you, do a spectrum, a very wide spectrum of colors. So loud, soft, low strings, high strings, slow, fast, legato, articulate. Sums it up. You're going to hear the whole range of the cello, because I've had some cellos that are so beautiful when they're lyrical, and then I play them fast and it's so boomy that it sounds like woo woo woo, even though I'm like with the bow. it just doesn't sound articulate at all because the cello is too resonant. So you really, and that really breaks my heart when I play something that is so beautiful and then I get to, yeah, definitely. Awesome, you're most welcome. A red flag on the cello. Red flags, this isn't necessarily, I don't know, you know, the biggest red flag actually doesn't really have anything to do with the cello. I mean, I would say, ask about the repair history. If you really like a cello, see if it has had a lot of repairs done. I mean, Celli has, but Celli's really old, right? So like the older the instrument, the more repairs that are going to be done on it. But if you are trying out a cello from like 2010 and it has like 6 cracks in it, well, someone didn't take care of it, and that might be maintenance you need to do down the road. So you can ask, hey, has there been any like heavy duty work done on this? You can ask about the repair history. See if you hear any strange buzzing sounds, crackling sounds. Usually that's something routine, like a seam has to get a little more glue, and that's actually very routine maintenance. It's not a big deal, but you want it done before you buy it. So, yeah. I mean, some shops will offer to give you a complimentary check over for seams and stuff, but I'm going to tell you the biggest red flag I've seen is the attitude of the people in the shop. Believe it or not. Not even having to do with the instrument. The attitude, yeah, like a rattling, someone just posted. So you really want to listen to those things if there's any artificial buzzing or anything. So the biggest red flag I've had is actually the attitude of the people in the shop. Because think about it. What happens if a seam pops open? You need to bring this to get repaired. And you're probably going to go to the shop where you bought it from. Oh man, that's good. Someone said this is hilariously like dating advice. I mean, it's a marriage, man. It's totally a marriage. If you pick something that you're going to have for really, really long term, it's like a serious relationship or a marriage. Don't be afraid to take your time. I mean, it took me a whole year. A year. I was 16 years old. I was so anxious to find a cello. And I found Celli, but it took a whole year to find it. Yeah, I mean, if you need a place to do repairs, typically it's easiest to go where you bought it from. But if people aren't collaborative to work with, or they're weird when you ask questions, these are all kind of warning signs. If you ask about the repair history, or you ask about the upkeep, and they're like, well, why does that matter? Why do you need to know that? If they kind of start getting defensive, that's not good. They should be transparent. So that's the best advice I can give you. Because, you know, if this becomes your baby, and you want them to take really good care of it too. So good luck. It does take a lot of time, but it is a very exciting adventure to find your cello. So good luck. I'm very excited for you. Why do cellists move their heads when they play? Honestly, a lot of it is to be expressive. I'm trying to think of a good analogy for this. One other reason too, some people move their necks around if they, you might see some cellists kind of, and that's usually to release neck tension. If someone's working on neck tension, I had a teacher once that advised doing a little bobblehead to loosen up, or sometimes if I have a long rest and I have a big solo, I might just kind of look off to breathe, get ready. Or it's also just expressive too. I mean, think about it this way. If you're watching a very exciting movie or a suspenseful movie, like my favorite are scary horror, paranormal horror, or psychological thriller movies. Those are my favorite. And if I'm really into a movie, I'm just kind of like on the edge and I'm like leaning in and I'm really listening. Or if I'm really scared, like it's real, when you are really emotionally into something that is a piece of art or a piece of multimedia, it's kind of hard to just sit there like this. Oh yeah, that was scary. Yeah. You know, you get involved. You physically get involved. So yeah. I just think it's just kind of our body and our mind connecting in a way of expression. Now you got to be careful though, because I'm a very I move when I play. I am definitely a moving player, but and sometimes I still have to look out for this. I like do things when I change bow or do something when I shift. If it's tied to a technique and it's a technical habit, that energy in your neck probably belongs more in your bow or your ease of shifting. So you have to be careful that your physical effort isn't manifesting in a technical way that needs to go into the instrument and not your neck, your head, or your shoulders. So that is kind of a borderline. You have to be careful not to cross. Someone mentioned, I love Dupre's body language. Oh, Queen Dupre. Moment of silence for Miss Dupre, because, oh man. If you don't know Jacqueline Dupre, you need to go look her up right now. Either some of her best recordings, Elgar Concerto, Allegro Appassionato. Oh man. She was a presence. Yeah, okay, someone said she's one of the reasons I wanted to play cello. Her and her interpretation of the Elgar Concerto. Yeah, that's probably her most famous. Oh, you're most welcome. Yeah, Jacqueline Dupre is a huge reason why I play cello too. Also, I was too young at the time, I think. I started cello when I was 8 years old. I was actually, I mean, it doesn't really, I still love what I do, and, I went to music school, doing the whole grind, that was still young, but some people start even younger, but 8, some of these questions, I love them. I'll get to some of these. I'm curious about the line of thought that's going on with YouTube right now. What are you guys talking about? They're like, I'm a little confused by these questions, but I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna roll with it. But I want to talk about the Queen Dupre. You can't interrupt me when I'm talking about Dupre. She's the queen, okay? When I was younger, again, I think subconsciously it was so exciting for me to see a woman who was really famous in her time as a soloist. She was actually a very rare performer. I am totally blanking on her years right now. But she was famous in a time where you didn't see a lot of female soloists. And so I think that really, hit it home for me, because as a fellow person, identifying as a woman, like seeing her, I could see some of myself in her, and that was very powerful for me. So, and I was very expressed. Sometimes I overdid it as a child, but I was very like whipping myself around and all those kinds of things. And I've toned it down since then, but not all the way. Got to keep some of that. I love emoting and engaging the audience in that way, in addition to music. So, all right, some of these questions. What's going on here? Have you ever broken a cello? Have you ever broken a chair? You guys think I'm like a beastly beast. No, no. I haven't broken those things. No. I mean, I'm sure I've sat in some old chairs that came pretty close if they're rickety. I've never broken a cello. No. Oh yeah, have you ever played a cello with a fur coat on, and how does it feel? Faux fur, and it was my electric cello. It was actually like last month. It was a faux fur top coat, not a full coat. That's fine. I don't know. Playing in poofy clothing with cello in general is kind of hard because I like to have it against myself. Yeah, someone says, I feel like that would get too hot. I agree with you. And like puffy clothing kind of brings the cello up. I really like to have it close to my body. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that. Huh. Okay, cool. Next. Can you post some advice on using metronome for syncopated rhythms? Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay, so there's this part in the Elegie. This person's referring to syncopated rhythms and also a particular syncopated rhythm. Like the Elegie. Dum ba da 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 ba da dum bum 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 ba dum. Yep. That's a very... It's a part that is kind of difficult, especially because the Elegie's really slow. Oh, and for the person asking about the thumb, let me know which thumb you're talking about. You're talking about the bow thumb or the left thumb, and then I'll get to you next. Yeah. So in the chat on Instagram, let me know which thumb you're referring to. Yeah, so when you have really, so I'm gonna specifically talk about slow syncopations. So Elegie is so slow, you could count it in eighth notes. So it's this slow from the beginning. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. It's very slow. So I would actually recommend you put your metronome on the eighth note, because an eighth note, in fractions we talk about a common denominator, finding a common bottom number. Sometimes in syncopations, you're playing off of a quarter note. Ba 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 ba. But the eighth note is the common factor. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. You're always going to be on an eighth note. So I would take your metronome. Let us see. What'd be a good eighth note? Dum bum bum ba da 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 ba 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 ba. Maybe a little slower, like around 72. Da da. Whoopsie. Oh, there we go. So what I would do, it involves some math, which is my least favorite part of being a musician. I don't like math, but I've gotten really good at rhythms and syncopations by doing this. Take a pencil and put a vertical tick mark, so like just like a light vertical line through the note where you are going to be with the metronome, so you know where you're going to line up. And if you line up with it, you're on the right track. If not, something went wrong. And you can start by singing it first with the metronome, so that we're not focusing on how to, what does the bow have to do? Is my intonation right? Just use your voice. Doesn't matter if you're right on pitch. Speak it. Doesn't matter. Ba, 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 ba. It doesn't matter. People are always hesitant to vocalize. I was, myself included. Quickly got over it once you realize it helps. Ba, 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 da, da. You hear that triplet? It's with this. So I put a tick mark on that 16th note triplet. Ba, 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 da, 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 ba, da, triplet, ba, da, 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 bum, ba, da. Those last 8th notes. Ba, da. So try it out at the 8th note. And finding out pillars and benchmarks where you are where you're lined up with the metronome. Sorry, somebody is do-ba-do-do-do. Bye. Sorry, sometimes that's what happens when you mess with my chat. You get ejected. Okay. Next question. I'm in my 2nd year. Oh, you're most welcome. Oh my goodness, you guys are so awesome. I didn't realize what time it was. Wow, this is amazing. You all are awesome. This is gonna be the last question. No, I don't have my faux fur coat handy. So sorry. Maybe some other time. I don't know. It would be a pretty thing to wear for a music video someday, so you might get to see some faux fur coat cello playing. This is going to be our last question from YouTube. I'm in my 2nd year cello learning as an adult. I practice every day. How many years do you think it can take to play more freely and skillfully without anxiousness, missing notes, or scratchy sound? Sure. So this question, it does have a lot of variables, I will say. And, excuse me. There's a lot of variables in your question. I'm sorry, someone was very witty in the chat, and it made me giggle. No, but this is an excellent question. So there are a lot of variables here. Moving freely and skillfully. So what that kind of tells me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Your thumb technique. You're going to be the last question. I promise. Skillfully and freely. So that sounds like there might be some tension, maybe in the shoulders, maybe in the thumb, maybe the back. So that. You practice every day. Awesome. Consistency is super key. Consistency and quality of practicing. Having 2 beneficial hours of work is a lot better than 4 hours of distracted, not efficient work. So be in conversation. If you really want to improve quickly, talk with your teacher about what are some tricks for being efficient when I practice? What are some of the traps to fall into where I might not be making the most of my time? Freely and skillfully without anxiousness, missing notes, or a scratchy sound. So I'm going to really focus on the missing notes and the scratchy tone. I would say you're in your 2nd year of learning as an adult. The missing notes and the tone, generally, I think you start getting a very good, consistent tone and note accuracy probably around year 3 or 4. But here's the thing, too, that I get so nervous about putting a number on something like this because I don't want you to start. Oh my gosh, it's almost year 3 and I keep missing C sharp. I don't want you to think that benchmark is written in stone, because some people have very, very different skill sets, very different things that they excel at, and some things take longer. So I will tell you, for example, it took me the longest time to learn spiccato, which is a very, very bouncing, jumping bow, very close to the string, very difficult, but it took me way too long to learn it. Took me very long, longer than the average cellist, but I'll tell you, I could play in thumb position by year 3. Some reason I have a knack for thumb position. Don't know why. Could not do spiccato till college. So there's an example for you where I also had horrible tension in my body, and I really started combating that. It took me about 12 years to really understand how difficult I was playing and how much tension I had in my body. So that's the thing. That's why I get so nervous, because I know people want to, like, I understand too, maybe this might not be your case, but maybe you're worried about the learning style or teaching style, or I don't know, maybe you feel like you need to be pushed harder, pushed less hard. So sometimes people ask for a gauge in that regard if they're worried about their learning style, but I don't want you to think, not for me, it's year 3 and I'm still squeaking. We all squeak. Once in a while, we get a freak thing that happens, an accident, and we squeak. I mean, that happens, and I really just, as long as you hear improvement, you're doing the right thing. As long as you feel like you're learning new concepts and you're not having the same lesson over and over again, that's what I think would be better for you to focus on is, well, last month I just learned 3rd position and now I played a whole piece in 3rd position. That's a progression. That's improvement. And as long as you're doing that, because the thing you're talking about, tone, note accuracy, and ease of playing, those are all very long-term projects, which is fine. That's great. But I really want you to focus more on the short, immediate victories as well. Don't lose sight of those. Again, I did great at thumb position, but playing fast with my bow, I struggled with for a really, really long time. And it eventually happened. It did happen. But as long as you have consistency and really small bits of improvement, you're on the right track, my friend. So I really want you to enjoy those little victories. Final question, thumb technique. You've been so patient. Thumb for strings and high notes. Okay. Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for your patience on Instagram for the thumb. So it sounds like you're talking about thumb position. Playing your thumb with high notes. So like, sometimes we play a note with our thumb up high. So a couple, I'm tilting that way so the vertical screen of Instagram, you can see a little more. So with the thumb, some tips for the thumb. So that little bit I improvise. So I'm on the A string. My rule of thumb is you really want to be on your primary string plus the next lowest string. So you really have good stable contact on the neck. If I'm just on the A string, might fall off, right? So you really want to have your thumb on the primary string plus the one beneath it. Also, our or pad in the middle of the finger, you're on the side of your thumb, right? So at the top of your thumb, there's a lot of nail. And if I try to play, I just get more flesh contact, and as a result, the tone is kind of clearer. It's not going to buzz on my fingernail. So primary note or primary string plus one below. So you're riding on two strings at once. And I have a tabletop level in my arm. I'm not dipping with the wrist and resting on the body of the cello. I'm also not arcing up, really aiming to have a flat, stable forearm and wrist alignment. So watch out for any, I call them dips or V's, or any bumps. And a quick way to get in touch with that, make a fist, have a 90-degree angle, turn it, put it on your strings. That is your forearm alignment. So if you're trying to manipulate and some weird things are going on, take the hand away, make a fist, 90-degree angle, hover over the strings and land. That's going to give you a really nice arm form. So the other thing, if you are at the point, generally you'll start with harmonics, and those match your open strings, but an octave up. If you want to warm up and experiment, you can play your mini scales. That's D major. That's G major. So you can play some scales with your thumb acting as the open string. So generally you start with a harmonics on thumb. And regardless, if I'm playing different notes, my thumb is very light. I'm not weighing it down. It's acting as a balance and a guide, which is kind of what it does under the neck too. You don't squeeze like that, so you don't press. Don't press if you're not playing a solid note with your thumb. It should be, that's how light it should be. I'm still on the string, but I'm gliding on top, okay? So that's a huge thing. Some people, when they shift or they try to move, they press with the thumb, and you really don't have to do that. Don't do that. It's going to put a lot of tension on your hand. Then, great. So the other thing too, when you shift, I push up with my thumb. My thumb follows the hand, and it's leading my shifts by pushing up or pulling back. So you don't want to leave your thumb behind. It really puts a lot of strain here the higher you go. So generally I have my thumb hanging out about a whole step behind the hand, a whole step behind. So move everything up. And those are kind of my basic rules for the thumb as a guide and balancing in your thumb position. If you want to weigh it in, if you're starting to play solid notes with the thumb, let's say you had to play a passage without the A harmonic and you have to be very quick, I would just plant the thumb. So what I do is I lift a little bit higher in my elbow, so it's kind of like a seesaw. It pivots the weight into the string rather than me pressing up and down. That gives a lot of strain on your thumb. You're really putting a lot of weight and tension on one finger. So if you lean into it like a seesaw, that's going to give you your weight. So lean in, don't push down or press. No press. I joke in my studio that pressing is my swear word. Press and pressure, you can't say them. It's weight, not press. forward in my studio. So you lean in by having the elbow a little higher, and that's gonna, if your elbow goes up, your hand's gonna sink down. Again, it's like a seesaw. So elbow goes up, you can see that my hand and my thumb kind of pivot in this way. That's gonna be crucial. So if you're playing solid notes with your thumb other than a harmonic, really try to find a comfortable spot where you can lean without wildly distorting the hand shape. You don't want to go too high with the elbow, but just a little bit so you can lean in without feeling like you have to manually press. All right, awesome. Good luck with that. I love thumb position so much. It's one of my favorite things to do. I use the thumb all over. First position, everywhere. I love using the thumb. It's a very helpful resource, and it can only be that way if you it's only a helpful resource if you can do it comfortably. So that's the most important thing, is playing it comfortably. There we go. Thank you all so much. Some housekeeping. I saw someone saying, this is super helpful. I'm so glad. Thank you for tuning in. I missed a good portion. Can you leave it up on your channel so I can watch it from the start? Live streams. Every single live stream is archived on the Cello Doll channel. I have a whole playlist. It's called Cello, I think it's called Cello Tips Live. I keep all of my live streams, all of them. So don't worry. Maybe I should be a little more candid about that, because I understand we all have different schedules. We can't always sit down for an hour at this time and watch. So they're always archived. I never take them down. Yeah, really, seriously. They're always left up. I always leave live streams up for you, especially for dolls who might not, you know, maybe they can't easily access YouTube, so they watch it on their phone, on Instagram. You know, it's always available on YouTube, so I will definitely leave it up so you can check it out. Don't worry, they don't go running off anywhere. So I also wanted to do a huge shout out. I saw that somebody left a tip in our virtual tip jar, which I deeply appreciate. Thank you so much. That really means a lot, because these live streams are a free, helpful resource where I really try to give you personalized, catered advice. The videos are a great resource, but I really like interacting with you all individually, finding out kind of what your custom needs are and giving you custom advice. It's kind of like a little free consult. So I deeply appreciate the tips. Thank you so much. If you want to check out the virtual tip jar, it's in the live stream in the little text box next to my head. On Instagram, go to my bio link, and you'll see Venmo and PayPal options if you want to contribute. Thank you all so much. This was fabulous. Wow, what a great way to start the new year. Hot and running and filled with questions, anxious to learn. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And this is great. Tune in. We're going to be back in February, last Thursday of every month. Unless I make a special announcement, sometimes if I'm traveling or there's a show. But if not, it's been pretty good. Last Thursday of every month, we do a live stream here, so Chelly and I can help you all out. You all are so welcome. Thank you so much for your kind and encouraging words and thought-provoking questions as always. And you know, as I say, as always, happy practicing, my dolls. You guys are going to do great. Go own it in your practice room, and Chelly and I are rooting for you. Bye!